Hi, and welcome to another tutorial on Swift Auto Layout. Today, we're going to look at the next icon, which is the align icon. Okay, so notice here, I started off and I put 4 coordinates on here. I have a negative, negative, positive, negative, negative, positive, and positive, positive. Okay, so the first part, the first sign is for X, and the second sign is for Y. So we have an XY, which is X is negative and Y is negative. X is positive, Y is negative. X is negative, Y is positive, and X is positive and Y is positive. Okay? So with respect to the line, the options that we have available with one square or one box, which I call box, or one view, is these two down here, the horizontal and container and vertical and container. And when we start adding other objects to it, all these other will become available as well. Okay? So let's take a look at this. Now, I'm going to take our box from the previous example, and I have our box and our view. So notice here, if I move it around, we see the little blue lines. Okay? So notice here, if I move it exactly toward the center, we're going to have a horizontal and a vertical line pop up. Okay? So this view here, adding the align using the align icon, we're going to have this horizontal container and vertical container available. So again, here we go right here. Okay, so notice now here, if I click on the icon and I go to horizontal and container and I select use current canvas value, that is going to use the actual value where the object is at. And so if I select on the view and container for using current canvas value, it's going to show me 0. It's going to show me for 0 for the horizontal and 0 for the vertical, because we are right in the middle of our center and vertical, excuse me, our horizontal and vertical. We're right in the center. So again, if we click on the align, it's showing 0 and 0. Okay? So now what happens if I take this square or this box and move it to the right? We are still on the horizontal, however, we are not on the vertical. So if we click on this align and we click canvas value here, use current canvas value, I'm showing a horizontal of 88.5, and our vertical is still going to be 0, because notice here all I did was shift it on the horizontal line, and notice here the X is positive, so our value is 88.5, which is positive. If I take this box here and move it to the opposite direction on this side here, notice here that we're still at vertical 0. However, our X should be negative. So if I click on the align icon and I click on use current canvas value, we should get a negative number, which we do. We get negative 8.3. And if I go to vertical and container and select use current value, we still should get 0, which we do. Okay? So I can add those two constraints, and there we go. Now I'm going to go ahead and clear those constraints. And let's say I take it back and I move it right toward the middle again. Okay, but at this time I'm going to move it up. So now our X hasn't changed, but our Y has changed. So notice here, based on our labels here, our Y should be negative. So I'm going to click on the align, and if I click on the horizontal container again, that should be 0, which it does. And the vertical and container, when we say use current value, should be negative, which it is. We get a negative 144.5 because we move this box up negative 144.5. So if I take that and add the constraints, there we go. There we have it. I'm going to go ahead and clear constraints, and I'm going to take this box and move it down. I'm going to keep it right in the center and move it down the vertical. Okay. So again, if I click on the align icon and I go to the horizontal, should be 0, stay 0. Now the vertical, notice here, is positive for the Y. We should get a positive number. Using current canvas value, we come up with 177.5, which is positive. Okay, so let's clear that. I'm going to go ahead and add it. I'm going to clear the constraints. I'm going to take this object and let's say that I move it up here in this quadrant here. We should get both negative numbers for x and y direction with respect to the middle of the view. So if I click on the align and click on use current value, we get a negative 97.5 and a negative 151.5. So with respect to this middle or the center, we shifted it negative 97 and negative 151. Okay, so if I take it over to this side over here and click on align, we should come up with a positive x and a negative y. So here's my horizontal container. Use current value, which is 100.5, which is positive, and our y should be negative, which is negative 149. So with respect to that center, we've shifted it over positive x and negative y. Okay, take this object again and move it down here to the bottom left. Okay, this time we should get a negative x and a positive y. So if I click over here and say use current canvas value, we get a negative x of negative 90, and we should get a positive number for y, which is 177. Okay, so now if I take this object and move it over down here with respect to the center, and I click on align, I should get a positive x and a positive y. So I'll use current canvas value, which is 97.5, and use current canvas value, which is 183.5, and I can add those constraints. Okay, so I'm going to clear the constraints, and let's see how we're going to use this. Okay, so I can take this again, I'm going to put it right in the center. Again, I have over here on, excuse me, in our document outline, I do have 4 labels just for the 4 that we have selected here. So we're just going to disregard those right now. And we have our box and we have our view. Okay, so now I'm going to take my box. Okay, and again, as an exercise, I'm going to click on the second icon, which is add new constraints, and I'm going to give it a fixed width and a fixed height. So we're adding 2 constraints. Okay, so as in past examples here, we need 2 more in order to get rid of this. So the error message says, hey, I need a constraint for the x position, I need a constraint for the y position. Okay, so I can go to the align, okay, and click horizontal or vertical and keep them. Let's use the current canvas value, which is 0, 0. I do not work. Oops, forgot. Sorry. I have to select it. Okay. Now we can use the current canvas value, which is 0, current canvas value, which is 0, hit add constraints, and our errors go away. Again, we have 2 constraints for our height and width, and we have 2 constraints with respect to our x and our y. But notice here what our message says. We have a box center x equals center x and a box center y equals center y. And notice the icons here. They show that we are basing it on alignment. Okay? So again, this icon stands for height, this icon stands for width, this one stands for alignment and alignment. Okay? So let me go ahead and clear the constraints. Good. Okay. I'm going to take this and let's just go ahead and put it up here. Okay. Again, we can add new constraints, and this is just for this example, let's make it a fixed width and a fixed height. Add the 2 constraints. Okay, we go to our error messages, and it says that we need a constraint for x position, need a constraint for y position. So either A, we can do the x position with respect to the margin or the edge, the margin or the edge, or we can do it with respect to the center. So again, we're going to do it with respect to the center. So I'm going to click on the box, go to use current canvas value, use current canvas value. So again, notice here we're in negative area, so this should be negative 83, negative 173, because we're negative with respect to the center. We had those 2 constraints. Again, we're adding a horizontal, which is an x, and we're adding a vertical, which is a y, which will get rid of this error and that error. So we add the 2 constraints. Errors disappear. We go back to structure, and we see our constraints for our center X and our center Y. And if we do the caret on the box, we have our constraints for our height and our width. Okay, so let's just do one more for an example here. So I'm going to go back to my resolve auto layout issues. Let me click on the square, resolve auto layout issues, clear constraints, and let's take this one and let's just drag it right there. Okay, so again, let's click on the add new constraints. We'll do a fixed width, fixed height. Let's do it this way. Let's do an aspect ratio. Let's build this up. Let's do an aspect ratio and add that one constraint. So we have one constraint, and if we look at our error messages here, it says need a constraint for the X position, need a constraint for the Y position. So knowing for X and Y, we can base it off the center alignment. We can go to the center alignment, add the horizontal, add the vertical. Let's set it with respect to current canvas value, current canvas value. So notice again, it should be positive and positive, which the square lays in that positive positive area. So we add two constraints, so that's going to give us three constraints. So we should be another error message should pop up and say, hey, we need one more constraint after we add these two. So we click it. Good. Okay. So now we had a different error pop up. It says need constraints for X position or width, or a needed constraint for X position or height. Because remember, we are doing on the box, we have a constraint of an aspect ratio. So we're doing it with respect to the horizontal, the width, and the height. So if we give it a width or a height, we can automatically calculate the aspect ratio. So let's click on the box, and let's give it, go to add new constraints, and let's give it a height, add the constraints. We have four constraints, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then we have no more errors. Okay. So basically that's all we have to do with the align icon right now, because the only ones available for us with this box, with just one box, is just a horizontal container and vertical container. Okay, very quick tutorial, and I will see you in the next lesson. Thank you very much.